right, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1928 Ford Model A. Up front is a 3.3 liter inline 4 and down below is a 3-speed non-synchronized transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here Ford Model A for a couple of reasons. Mainly, if you're a fan of the channel, you'll know that I have my own Ford Model A, but that's a 1931 Ford. This is a 1928, so I have now driven the bookends because the Ford Model A was started in 28 and ended after 31. But before we get on to anything else, I have a website, zackpradel.com, where you can buy stickers like the retro sticker pack, or I have a big friggin' bottle test sticker. You could also submit your own vehicle to be reviewed by me through a quick and easy submission form, and you can read my behind the scenes blog to see what I'm filming before it comes out on the channel. So let's get back to that 3.3 liter inline 4. Well, it's a 201 cubic inch inline 4. I know fans of American cars are gonna get upset with me calling it a 3.3 liter and not its cubic inch, so for the rest of the video, it's going to be referred to as the 201. The inline 4 makes about 40-ish horsepower, according to Ford 90 years ago, so take that with a grain of salt. What's interesting about these cars mechanically is that they don't have any fuel pumps. It's all gravity fed. They're obviously carbureted, and as you can see on the top of the engine, the plug wires aren't really hidden by anything. Now, normally these cars are 6-volt positive ground vehicles, meaning the chassis is positively charged. However, this car has its generator swapped out for an alternator, just for a little bit more drivability. The owner drives this car as much as possible. Heck, it's snowing today and I'm driving this Model A. So that's just one of those modern drivability modifications that a lot of Model A owners tend to go for. Like I said, paired to it, 3-speed manual transmission. Now, it does not have any synchronizers, meaning you have to double clutch between gears, and it's rather easy to grind if you're unfamiliar with how to drive these cars. On top of that, it's also a dogleg shifter, meaning first gear is left and back, second gear is right and forward, third gear is right and backward. If you're used to driving the first generation Mustang or driving 3 on the tree vehicles like this Econoline here or this Plymouth Belvedere I reviewed, then that shift pattern will make a lot more sense to you. Last but not least, of course, the Model A is rear-wheel drive. So let's talk about the interior. We don't really have a whole lot to talk about. Well, in front of me, I don't have anything. My gauges are actually found in the center. I do have a fuel gauge, which quite literally just sits in the fuel and bounces at whatever level you are at. Then I have an amperage gauge and my odometer and speedometer down at the bottom, and of course my key to turn it on and off. However, turning that key doesn't actually officially start the Model A. You have to first turn on the gas. You can also use this choke if it's cold, and then you have to hit the starter button, which we'll talk about in a second. On the steering wheel, I have a horn button in the center, and I have this little switch. That is traditionally for the headlights. That's actually how you turn the headlights on and off in a Ford Model A. However, this particular car has had them rewired to a separate switch. Behind the steering wheel, you'll see these 2 levers. These are not turn signals because the Model A didn't actually come with turn signals. The one on the right is a hand throttle. Think of this basically as cruise control. You can set the throttle to be held at a certain speed. The one on the left is to advance and retard the spark in the engine. So you get to manually set timing as you drive, which is kind of fun, and definitely modern cars leave that to the computer. But as I've said before, in a Ford Model A, you are the computer. Moving on to the door, of course, I have the crank for the window and my latch to get in and out. That's pretty much it. Now down below me, I do have a couple of interesting things. First of all, I have a giant parking brake, and then I have some buttons on the floor. The button to the far right is to rest your foot, because to the left of that, that's the gas pedal. It's the little circle, which is kind of interesting. However, the Ford Model A was actually the first vehicle from Ford to have quote-unquote traditional driving controls, meaning a gas pedal to the far right, a brake in the middle, and a clutch to the left. The Model T had a hand throttle and had a separate pedal for reverse. Last but not least, for the floor, there's a button all the way up at the top. That is for the electric start. So you can crank start this vehicle if you have the crank and if that's something you'd like. However, this does have a factory original power starter. That was an option even back in 1928.
And of course, because the 1928 Ford Model A does not come with any cup holders, it fails the big frickin' bottle test.
Now the seats are, of course, very cushy, very comfortable, because there were no real requirements for seats at the time. I do not have seat belts, not even lap belts. And yes, that is legal because it's been grandfathered in. Now, speaking of seats, I don't have any back seats. However, I do have a trunk, which is kind of a rarity on a Model A. So let's go hop around back and talk about the trunk area. All right, so we're on the back of the Ford Model A from 1928. Couple of things to note. First of all, only one taillight for 1928, only one taillight. However, by 31, they had added a second one. But you come around here, this obviously is your spare tire. And there you go. There is the trunk of a 1928 Ford Model A. Pretty cool, and actually tons and tons of storage. There were tons of different body styles of the Model A available. Some with the rumble seat, which is basically, if you hinge this backwards, you could actually seat people back here. Not very safe, but something that the Model A was kind of known for. Unfortunately, that isn't this. This is just the regular trunk, but tons of space back here. And actually, it was this era that we came up with the term trunk, because a lot of Model A's didn't have this cargo space, and so you'd actually put a physical trunk, like you'd put clothes in, you know, in your house, you'd attach that on the back of the vehicle. Kind of interesting here, but plenty of cargo space in the 28 Ford. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I, of course, love the look of the Model A. Now, as we'll get to in a second, yes, this Model A is black, but Ford did not stick to their "you can have any color as long as it's black" motto for the Model A. You could get them in tons of colors. Like, for instance, mine is green, but I like the red wheels. And something to note, it being an earlier Model A, is especially the radiator cowl. That's very different on the 31 versus the 28. And also, I get this awesome radiator cap up at the front. It's a quail. Kind of cool. Not kind of, very cool. But now let's get to my final thoughts on the Model A. Well, first of all, I love Model A's. I own my own. They're fantastic. They're super reliable, super easy to work on. For a 90-year-old car, I always tell people it's one of the most reliable cars I've ever owned. But let's talk about the history of the Model A little bit, because being an owner, I am always learning something new about these cars. Well, since this is a first-year Model A, I figured it'd be the right time to talk about it. The Model A was introduced in 1928 and was sold through 1931. In 1932, they started the Model B, and the rest is history. Throughout the later 30s, they offered the flathead V8, whatever. But the interesting thing to me about Model A's is that Henry Ford, renowned for the Model T and changing the way production has been conducted for the last 100 years, he didn't want the Model A. They sold the Model T from 1909 till 1928. Henry Ford lived and died by the saying, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." The Model T was still selling okay, but Chevy and Chrysler had updated their fleet a couple of times since the Model T's introduction. It was actually Edsel Ford, Henry Ford's son, that pushed for the Model A's conception. He even designed it, which, I have to be honest, didn't take a whole lot of vision, since it looks like every other car from the era, but I digress. And so finally Henry Ford was like, whatever, sure, put the Model A into production. And in 4 years, these were only sold for 4 model years, Ford sold 4.4 million of them across the world. Now, to be fair, there were 15 million Model Ts, but I wouldn't call 4 million a failure. But more importantly than the car itself, it changed Henry's opinion. He realized that updating cars is a necessity to keep people's interests. He couldn't just go on selling the Model T forever and ever and ever like he planned to. And so this was Ford taking a step into the new era. Are we seeing that again now with the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the electric SUV? Maybe. But 90 years ago, this was the new kid on the block. This had so many innovations over the Model T. For instance, this car has brakes at all 4 wheels. Now you might be sitting in your armchair saying, "Zach, don't all cars have 4 brakes?" Well, not back in the early 1900s. The Model T had a transmission brake. Also, like I mentioned, this had the more traditional driving setup. This became the normal. Clutch on the left, brake in the middle, gas on the right. So this was a big step forward for Ford, and it all started in 1928. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed learning about the Model A, please go check out my good friend Paul Shin. He has tons of videos, way deeper dives than I'm doing here. So if you want to learn more, please go check him out. His link will be in the description below. Huge thank you to James for letting me take out his 28 Model A. This thing is awesome. It's really, really clean, and I'm really, really excited by it. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.